Hello everyone and welcome to Creating Software Simulations in Storyline. My name is Adam Cannon. I'm an e-learning evangelist here at E-Learning Brothers. I wanted to welcome you and thank you for your participation. Just a few items of business before we get into things. First of all, if you aren't able to hear me or see the screen, please let me know or let us know. I say us because I have one of my coworkers, Taylor, monitoring the question and answer box so that I don't get totally distracted by it, and we'll come back to it at the end and I'll answer any questions. If he feels like there's something important that I need to see, he'll flag it and I'll see a little flashing indication. So feel free to ask your question at any time. If he can answer it, he will. If not, then it will come back to me. Some questions I may save and answer offline just because they may require some research or some more explanation. Also, excuse me, this webinar is being recorded. It will go out on our blog on Monday, as well as a recap of the session. So if you missed it or missed part of it, or if things cut out, we will be able to get a recap of it at the end. There are no handouts today because what we're doing is very much on the computer. It's hard to sort of give any handouts about that, but just be aware of that. You should be muted, so I won't be able to hear you, but like I said, feel free to ask questions there and to get a hold of us at any time after the fact. Also, you may hear from time to time my water cup filled with ice. I just am my mouth gets dry very easily, and so I have to keep myself hydrated, so I apologize. I hope that won't be too distracting. I will try to limit those as we go, but let's get started. So the first thing to remember as we talk about software simulations in Storyline are the 3 P's of this. The first one is permissions. One thing that I've discovered is that you have to be running both your Storyline instance as well as whatever software you're running with the same permissions. That means if you're running Storyline as an administrator, you need to be running your software, whether it's PowerPoint or MS Paint or whatever it is that you're trying to create a simulation of. They both have to be at that same security level. So make sure that you have that set. And we'll, if you don't, a single video slide will capture fine, but the step-by-step video won't. And we'll talk about that here in a minute. The second and third kind of are interchangeable. They're just the order that I kind of remembered them. The second one is practice, practice, and practice. Make sure that you go through and if you're going to record a software simulation, you practice it and you get it to where it's flowing and you think about the steps that you need to take and you know what your plan of attack is. And then, of course, the part of that is planning ahead, thinking about the steps that you want to take and how you want your learners to learn. So with that being said, let's jump right into it. So we're going to close my PowerPoint here, and let's jump into my Storyline. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a simulation of, I just picked a quick application of Microsoft Paint. It's easy, it's on everybody's computer, and it'll be fairly simple. So first thing we do is we look over here at Storyline. You can see I've got my interface here, and if I want to insert a recording, I can go to record screen. You can also do this as Storyline opens over on the left where you select either the projects you've been working on or a new project, or you can browse for more. There's also a record screen option there as well. But I'm already in Storyline, so I will go to record screen to the drop-down list, and I can click record my screen. And we'll give it just a minute. You see this little box comes up here, and I don't know how well you can see the frame around it. I'll try to get it to where it's somewhat on light surfaces, but you can see that there's a frame right now, and that frame is a certain size. And if I look down here at the black bar at the bottom, I can see that it's a 720 by 540, which is my default size in Storyline for a 4:3 ratio. And if I click in this little white box, I can drag that frame around and line it up with the corner of my presentation. And so one thing to think about is as you're creating this simulation, you want to think about, what is going to fit on your slides in Storyline, what's going to fit in your player. And so I usually set it at a ratio of Storyline. Then if I need to make it bigger for software purposes, then as I click and drag the corner of this box, it keeps that proportion. And so I can now make it, and I could also move my application around. So I could resize my application. Before I ever get into starting the recording, I can make sure I've got those windows sized just right. So you want to make sure and you get that window size right. As long as you see this little box in front of you, it's not recording yet. The other thing to look at is down here on the bar, on the black control bar, you have some options. We'll start with the gear, which is the settings option, obviously. So here's where you can set some shortcut keys. You can choose to accept the defaults of just stop recording as escape or pause as Alt-D. If you want to take a screenshot, that's print screen. Or if you have some that you're used to from other software or something or if you're using some of those commands in your software, maybe you want to choose a different one. This is also where you can set the system or the sound, excuse me. You can choose to capture your microphone if you want to talk while you're going, but you also can choose to capture the speakers. So if you've got music playing in the background, or if your software needs to play a piece of music or a sound effect or something to indicate that it's running, or if you want to hear the sound on a video that you're capturing, you need to make sure that that's enabled. Then these others are just the system tray icon. We'll just put a little icon down there so you know it's working. And then this other one moves new windows into recording area. This is good if your software that you're recording has pop-up windows. One thing I would caution you with that, though, is make sure that this frame that you're recording in, that any pop-up windows are going to fit into that frame. And that's why I say practice, 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 because I could sit here and I could play with this software all day with this recording window or with this frame open before I ever start the recording. And so I can go through the software and make sure that anything that pops up is going to fit. When it pops up, it's going to pop into this window and it's going to fit in this window so that I can see all the options. And then you need to think about that. All right, so those are the main options. I'm going to just select the defaults, but you can see that my microphone is moving and so forth, and so we'll go from there. So I'll just click OK. And you can see I'm ready to go now. So I've got, right here I can also select a screen size if you want to select a certain window or if you want to select your full screen. If you are recording the process, for instance, of how to do several things between windows on your computer, like on your desktop, you may want to go full screen. Some things to remember, number one is that multi-monitor is not supported. So if you have multiple monitors, you need to get everything onto one monitor that you're capturing. Even that pop into the recording area doesn't necessarily work very well on multi-monitor. I generally recommend to just do this all on one, either unplug your other monitor or turn it off or get down to one monitor, just so that you're not trying to pull stuff in, and sometimes it can mess things up. But again, that's part of the practice and figuring out what's going to work and what's not. Another thing to be aware of, if you are recording a web page or a web browser, because of the way it's coded, Chrome does not send the commands very well, and in fact you may even miss some steps. So if you're recording a web page, as much as you can, use Internet Explorer or Firefox. Internet Explorer is the best because it's sending the right information via the API to articulate it to the recording software and going from there. Firefox does a fairly good job, but Chrome does not really do a great job. So as much as you can, if there's something that you have to use in Chrome, just be aware of that you're going to need to do some things to maybe tweak it or to make sure that those steps are captured. And again, that's part of the practice. It's okay to capture, and I'll show you how to edit and delete recordings once we're done so that you can go in and see what's there and see what's missing. So we'll go from there, and I hope I'm not talking too fast. I know sometimes I get to sometimes I get to a point where I get talking pretty quickly, and I will try to slow down a little bit. Excuse me. All right, so now I'm ready. I've got my sizes set. I've got my microphone is on. I can see that, and now I'm going to record. And so I click the little red button to record, and I'll get a countdown. Let me just, for my sake, make sure I've got everything out of my way. I'm going to, okay, and then we click start. We get a countdown. It tells you press escape when done. Now it's running. And so now I can go in and just do what I'm going to do. We'll say I'm going to add a shape. So I click the shape, go grab a rectangle, bring it in, and I say, okay, that looks great. Now I want to do a fill. So I can grab the fill box, and maybe I want sort of a pale light yellow fill. So I click that and I drop that in. Now maybe I just want some text in here. So I can click and drag my text box and make sure my color is a color that's going to work, and then I can start to type. Maybe I want to turn this into a next button. So I can click that. I can resize. You know, obviously Paint doesn't offer a bunch of things, so this is just a quick demonstration. So I come in here and I say, okay, I've got all that. I'm good to go. And now I can choose if I want to add another shape. I can come back to the home button, add another shape. Maybe this one I want to add a circle. So add a quick circle and do a red fill on that one. Something like that. Okay, quick and easy, nothing fancy. So I'm going to click done, and it's going to take a minute, and I'm doing a real short one because this is the part that can take some time. And so we'll let it go. The more complicated your process is, the longer this process takes of saving the file and then bringing it into Articulate. And so we'll let that run. So now you can see this window pops up for Articulate. And here's some important things to think about. First of all, you want to give it a name that may mean something to you, just because you may want to come back and reference this. So I'm going to say MS Paint demonstration. Okay, and you notice here this insert as, you have two options. You can insert the video as a single slide, which means you're just going to get a video on a slide, and that's good if you just want to show them the process of you going through it. You don't want to give them any interactivity. And you can see how that would look by just, this is a preview window, so I can click play, and I can hear it, and I can see that it's going. And so it plays, and you can see that running. And it actually captured my audio, things like that. But then if you want to include a step-by-step trial where they walk through it, there are 3 variations of that. If you're familiar with Captivate, Captivate has a similar thing. In Articulate, it's called the view mode, the try mode, and the test mode. And the things to understand about those are, view mode means the user, the learner, is just going to watch you do it. They're going to watch you as you click on things. There will be windows that will pop up that will tell them what you're doing, but that won't really give them a chance to interact with it. It's much like a video. The try mode is where it's kind of a guided practice. They are given the chance to do what you did, but as they hover their mouse over the option, over where they're supposed to click, a little hint box will pop up. And then the test mode is essentially where you are saying, okay, go for it. We're not giving you any hints. We're just going to tell you if you're successful or unsuccessful. So I'm going to look at try mode right now, and I'll show you how you can publish this in other modes. You can put it in a new scene, or if you have a scene already created, you could come in and create a new scene, and then you can give it that scene a name. And so now I go and I say, okay, I'm going to insert this. And again, this process takes a few minutes. Again, this is where if you have a long simulation that you're recording, this does take some time. I did it the other night, and it had 65 slides, and it took, a few minutes to record. So we'll give it just a second here. It shouldn't take too much longer. This isn't very long. This one, I guess, has 34 slides, so it might take just a minute. But one thing to note is just because you choose view mode or try mode or test mode doesn't mean that that's the only one you can do. You need to understand that you can always come back and do more. The other thing to understand is that if you've used audio, if you've captured audio as you're going, it won't carry across into that view, try, or test mode, into the step-by-step modes. It only comes across with the video. So if you need to put audio with your step-by-step mode, I would suggest adding that audio after the fact, because it doesn't capture it and break up the audio. And so make sure that you've looked at that. All right, we're almost done here, so we'll give it just a second more, and you'll see what pops up. All right, so now you can see down my left side, you can see the various slides that are in here. And I can go in and I can preview this entire project, and you can see what it looks like. And so you can see here on the left-hand side, this is because I had an untitled slide in there, so I just want to click to go into my try section. So now I'm in the try section, and you can see that there's nothing there that tells me, but as I roll around and I get close, it tells me, oh, I want to click the shapes. And you notice it says the shapes grid drop down, and there's some little bit of weird spacing there between the quote mark and the shapes, and so we'll show you how to edit that. So you click that, and then it says, okay, go on to the next one. Click it again. Click the rectangle, and so you see how that functions. Okay, this over here, because of the titles, gives them some information. You can see on this one, it did it automatically for me because that was a click and drag, and I'll show you how you can control that as well. And so we'll look at these now, at how to edit these slides. So you can see in here that I have my slide, my base layer, then I have some layers on top of that. I have my hotspot is a layer with the correct text. I have a try again layer, and then I have a hint caption. And the triggers over here are all calling those out. And so you can change those layers. Obviously, these are just like in Storyline. You can edit these however you want in the master slide. You can change them, change up the elements as you need to. And the hint caption, maybe you say, I don't want it to be a caption. I want it to be just a rectangle, so I can change the shape and change it there. And maybe I want it to be a green instead of a blue. So it's very easy to go in and change that. And I noticed that when I did this, that I had, because it didn't seem to take the first time, I had the shapes caption, it told me to click on that shapes box twice. So I can delete the slide and get rid of that one and then just use this one. And then I can go in and I can say, I'm going to edit this to get rid of that extra space. And maybe I don't want to call it the shapes grid. Maybe I just want to call it the shapes drop down button. And I want to edit this to do some different things. So, and I can choose to, like I said, I can pretty much customize that how I want. If I wanted to add another button to the screen, I can add a trigger that will call that information out. So let's jump up here. This is one I wanted to show you. So this one, when I play the slide, it does the drag and drop automatically. Oh, hang on. It's this one, sorry. It's the one that doesn't have the square drawn yet. So I can see that it's going to, as it reaches the timeline, it actually clicks and drags. So maybe I want to control it, and I want to just say click here, and so I can insert a hotspot right here, and then I can add a trigger to that hotspot that says, instead of show layer, maybe I say I want to play the media screen recording action, and I say okay, and then I can get rid of this mouse entry. And then as I preview this, and I click it, then it kicks it off. And so that's a way that you can control it. If you want to tell them to click and drag down to the right or whatever, you could have them do it, or you could try to time it with the mouse as well. But basically you can tell them to just click, and then that will insert the shape and control that media as well. The other thing to look at is this button. So I right-clicked on my media here, and I can go to Action Fine Tuning. And that pulls up this window, and this is really nice because this lets you really fine-tune your actions, anything that starts. If you have a scrolling window or the mouse movement or something like that, this something that's a media playing, you can control this. You can control it frame by frame, or you can control it just like you would anything with a timeline with a click and drag here. And then you can always preview it just by clicking on the play button. And if you aren't satisfied with it, you can reset original timing. And the nice thing about this window is you can go slide by slide. You don't have to keep closing this window and reopening it. So you can just go to next slide and next slide and next slide and so forth. I can say as I click OK, it saves any changes that I made. And we'll give that just a minute. So now it's saved changes. Okay, and so one thing, so that's basically it. I've created the try mode. I can go in through and edit it. As I look here, if I play this slide, this is where I did a text entry. So you'll see that it's asking me to type the word next. So I can type next and I can hit enter, and it will then advance on to the next slide. So I can change that again in the hint caption, things like that, if you want to make sure that they follow the right steps. So now you say, okay, I've got the try mode, but I want to have them also do a view mode and a test mode. So now I can come up here and I can say, go to insert, record, and I click the drop down arrow next to record screen, and you can see I've got this. I can click on that, and now it opens this again. And I can go into view mode or test mode. One thing I wanted to show you that I didn't was this try mode options, for instance. This is where I can go in and I can say, I want it to show the test caption when hovered or always. I want it to show the hand cursor when hovering in hotspots, and I want to show correct feedback. So if I go into view mode, maybe I want to create one for them to look at. We can look at the view mode options. I can add the text captions. I can show the mouse cursor. I can include the clicks with or indicate clicks with a highlight, so it'll flash a little bit so they can see where to click. I can deselect any of those. But you see here, I can come in and I can create a new scene now that is my test scene, for instance. And we'll go in and we'll say, do I want to show correct or incorrect? Do I want to create a results slide that captures it? I can limit the attempts here to, I could say I only want 2 attempts and show a try again feedback. And I click OK, and then this creates a second scene. And so from an opening slide, for instance, you could have 3 buttons that said, show me how to do it, let me try, and then give me the test. And so they could click on each of those, and you could add buttons and controls and so forth. So I've got this set. We'll go in and insert for test mode and let you see what that looks like really quickly, and then we'll jump into a few more things. And I know that this is a lot of information coming at you. Like I said, this will be recorded, and there will be a recap posted on the blog on the eLearning Brothers site on Monday. So if you don't feel like you're getting it all, it will be available for you to go rewatch again and to get. And you're always welcome to ask me questions, at any time via the email or comments on the blog or whatever. So again, we'll give it just a minute to catch up here in rendering this. It's interesting because it, there's so much you can do here to control it and to think about it. And of course, because you can change the master slide layout so that the slides will look the way you want. And I really like this option, something that Articulate hasn't always had, but has caught up now with Captivate in that regard, and then it gives you this 3-step mode. I'll also show you here in just a minute what it looks like when you do a single video on a slide, which again is like the view mode, except that the view mode can show you the captions, and whereas the single video would just show somebody doing it. So here we are in test mode. I see up here in my scenes I have scene 3, test scene. So I can preview this scene. Pardon me. And so now it's playing. So it says, all it's telling me on the menu is hotspots. So I say, okay, I need to click here. Need to click there again. Okay. So one thing that I would recommend, certainly in test mode, is that you go in to your player and you turn off the menu so that they don't get those indications, those guideposts along the way of what to do. Certainly for test mode. You can probably leave it for the others, but because it's on the player, if it's there for one, it's there for all of them if they're all in the same storyline project. So if you turn it off, you can leave, for instance, for try mode, you can leave the hints visible so that they still are guided through and they still have to do the clicking. But the menu or the table of contents on the left isn't showing them, isn't giving them hints as to what to do next. So you can see that goes through, and that's the test mode. And again, I can go through and if I wanted to insert another video, maybe this time I want to insert as a single single slide. So the only thing it does is it shows mouse cursor and it gives me a chance to add it to the scene. I want to put this on scene 1, and so I'm going to insert that. So somebody asked I'll answer a question really quick. Somebody asked what screen recording sizes I recommend. The best recording sizes I can tell you are, like I showed you at the beginning, start with that 720 by 540, which is the 4:3, the default layout of Storyline, or if you're using the 16 by 9 layout, start with that as your size, and then as you drag that corner handle downward and outward, it maintains that aspect ratio, and so then as you put it in your Storyline file, it will maintain that aspect ratio, and you won't get a weird, either bars on the top or on the sides to make it fit. So think about that. That's why I say think about it and plan it, and you can always play with it and see how it's going to fit. Do a test recording. A test recording doesn't take very long to drop it in really quick and see how it works. So that's what I would recommend, is to use one of the aspect ratios that's there, or use that same 4:3 ratio, but just make it bigger. All right, we're almost there. Putting this video on the slide here. And so now it puts it in as a single slide. So if I preview this scene, it still has my initial slide, and then it's running. And you can see this video, it shows the mouse cursor, but it doesn't pop up captions or anything. So like I said, the video on a single slide is just for you to control. And this is where you could put in some buttons to control the video to start. You could have some overlays or some markers on the video if you wanted to call out some things, just like you would any video in Storyline. One thing I wanted to show you as well, you notice as I click this drop-down list for Insert Record Screen, it shows my project here. If I have multiple screen recordings that I've done, it will list them all in here, and you'll see this in use box by the one that I'm currently using, but I could go select any of them. I could have 2 or 3 or 4 or half a dozen in here, or whatever, and pick any of them and put it in. So it does save it in your, so that's really nice. So if I say, you know what, I created this recording on Microsoft Paint several months ago for a project, and I need now a slide or two from that, it's a good way to go capture a screenshot, or even to just go use that. So do that, and then you can obviously delete unused recordings, and then when you click on it, if you don't want it, you can click on this window and you can actually say right here, delete this recording if you don't want it. From this window as well, if you want to record more, there's obviously this record your screen button as well. So you can see all that. One thing that I always like to do is, you know, the nice thing is I can go in here and I can say insert new slide, and I can say from template, and maybe I want to get you know, this Storyline character, and I want him to be kind of the guide. And so I can come in here and I can say, now I've got him, I can copy and paste him in, you know, over here on this first slide, for instance. And I can have him be sort of the guide to tell him, you know, this is how you're going, and you can use any of our cutout characters or Storyline characters or any of the built-in ones as well to sort of guide you through. And with the Storyline characters, you get some poses that he could be pointing or different things. And so that's a great way to use some of those avatars, those characters, if you wanted to, in the try mode, to let them be the one giving the hint, make the hint caption a speech bubble or a thought bubble. And you could create a button that says show hint and roll over it or click on it, and it pulls them up. So I'm going to stop talking for a minute and turn to answering some questions. And so I'm going to look at the question box, and any that seem important, I'll flag. I did answer, what recording sizes do you recommend? So the question, and this is a good question asked here by Andrew, who has since left. How's Articulate working out the names of the controls, the shapes control, things like that? It scrapes what's in the system API file, and that's why they recommend that we use Internet Explorer to capture web browsers, is because you will have more complete exact names of things. I noticed the other day I did a recording of Audacity, which is an open source audio editor, and it didn't capture all the menu names right. It just said, you know, click on table, and the table was the file menu. But the nice thing about that is, because I've got this control, I can go in here into my, hint caption, and I can change whatever that says. You know, I can change this text to be whatever the right name is. And so it may not be 100% all the time accurate, but it should capture a big chunk of it, and then you can go through and adjust as needed to what the names and so forth need to be. So I'm looking to see if there are other questions. So I recorded in the video mode. Remind me how you created the try and test modes. Okay, so again, I come up here, I go to Insert, and I click the little drop-down button next to Record Screen, and I click on my video there, and then I can see over here my step-by-step, and then my drop-down here is View Mode, Try Mode, or Test Mode. So it brings in those three modes, and again, I can go choose each one as I need to, and I can choose to put it in the current scene, or I can put it in one of the scenes as it is, and then I can even give that scene a name if I need to. The question is, do I think that the recording feature and storyline is as powerful as Captivate's? I think they each have their strengths and weaknesses. You know, they're pretty equal. They've done a good job of keeping them pretty close. There are some things in storyline that, like in Captivate, you can actually highlight it doesn't necessarily capture the video automatically. You can have a little more control over those mouse movements and things like that. But really, they're really close. And I'm not even going to try to say that name, but the question was, does it also capture names of menu items in web apps? Again, I can't say that it captures every name perfectly, but it does a pretty good job. And again, if you're using for web browser, web apps, you know, use the bigger the name, you know, obviously it'll do a pretty good job with the Microsoft stuff and things like that. But if it's somewhat more obscure, you may have to do some tweaking. So the question is there a way to set up the default captions? Well, one thing you could do is, oh, hang on. I could go in, before I ever started this, I could go into my master slide, and I can change my colors, my fonts, my themes in here. So if I didn't want, and then in my feedback master is where I believe the captions are. I haven't actually played with that enough to know for sure that you can do it, so that's one that I will answer in the webinar recap on Monday, but I will look into it. Okay, so by web apps I meant WordPress. Yes, the general rule of thumb in any screen capturing software is it's probably not going to be 100% accurate on the menu names, things like that. Even something as common as MS Paint, you saw that it called it a shaped grid. And like in Paint, if I were to click on the color bars up at the top, it just says click on the grid. It doesn't pick the color itself. And so I could go in and I could say in my instructions, as I'm editing the field, like right here it says, you know, if I look at the hint caption, it says click the group. So I could go in and change that to just be click the orange color or the red color or whatever I want, whatever it was that I picked at the time. So, you know, again, the question keeps coming up, the biggest difference between recording screen activity using Storyline versus Captivate. Captivate's been around doing it for longer, so I think they've perfected a few things. But again, I haven't found anything that really would cause me to say, ooh, I don't want to use Storyline for this. But then again, I haven't used it in every single scenario. So, you know, there's lots of discussion out there on the forums. I'm happy to do, you know, to put together a blog perhaps sometimes of what the positives and negatives of each one are, comparing them side by side. We can look at that. You know, I use them more depending on what I'm doing the project for and who I'm doing it for than actually based on the tool. If I've, the Captivate versus Storyline discussion is incredibly large for different things. If I need something responsive, obviously I'm going to go into Captivate. In Captivate, actually, you can produce 3 modes from one recording. In fact, you can do, that's one of the things that you can do in Captivate, is you can capture all 3 at once. So you can go through and it has all 3 modes at once. At least you could in previous versions. I haven't done it in 9, but you don't have to record it 3 times. There's some check boxes and things. And, capturing screen captures in Captivate is a different webinar. There are, like I said, there are some differences and some similarities and some strengths and weaknesses to each. I like both tools. I'm an evangelist for both tools, and so, it just really depends on what I'm trying to do overall with the tool. In some ways, I like to develop in Storyline because I like the interface, but in other things, I like to do in Captivate. As far as I know, Kelly, there isn't a webinar doing this with Captivate, but that can be on my list since I do the Captivate webinars as well. I will put that on my list to do this in Captivate as well. So one thing I would certainly recommend as well is, you can go out there and there's lots of tools that can help you out there. The audio editing, like I said, it comes across somewhat in the step-by-step, but it doesn't come across super cleanly. And so if you're going to do audio for the step-by-step, I would suggest doing it after the fact, and then it just becomes like any other Storyline audio that you're editing right on the fly. Let's see. I know you can import PowerPoint into Storyline, but like Camtasia, can you record a PowerPoint slide shot in motion, or is it better to just import PowerPoint into Storyline? Well, because what you're doing here is you're recording a screen capture. You're essentially recording a video, and it's breaking it up based on clicks and keyboard strokes and things like that. So if you've got a PowerPoint slide with animation, or you've got a PowerPoint slideshow, you can certainly record that slideshow using Articulate, but because it's a video, you won't have control of those individual objects on the slide in PowerPoint once you get it into Articulate. And so if you want to manipulate the objects on the slide, you'll need to do that in a different fashion. Remember that what you're doing here is you're creating a software simulation. This is teaching someone how to use a piece of software, a web interface, and so you're guiding them through how to do that. And so that's why it's got the view, try, and test modes, is that you're teaching them how to use that piece of software, and you're not necessarily going through and using this to create your step-by-step or to create a bunch of objects. So make sure that, so yes, the answer is you can record the slideshow in PowerPoint, but if you're wanting to do like you do when you import the slideshow into PowerPoint, it's going to be a little bit different, because this is essentially recording the video. And so this is like you showing them how to use PowerPoint rather than just saying, I've created this slideshow in PowerPoint and now I want to move it into Storyline for the extra e-learning things that I can do in Storyline. The short answer to a lot of these questions is, in a lot of ways, if you imagine it, you can do it. I could, in theory, grab a second video of it recording my face. I could, because I've got, when I do the insert and I've got this record screen, I could come down and I could say, record. This is a screen recording, but if I wanted to insert my face, I could just do a capture of my face, or I could record, for instance, a webinar tool that has my face in the corner, or create a video of my face talking or different things, and I can insert that on the slide just as I would anything else. You know, it's somewhat it's about understanding what this part of the tool can do. Is that this is primarily for those software simulations, but you can, because you're capturing a video recording of the screen or of the window, you can pretty much do a recording of any piece of software on your system. In fact, I could do a recording of me, you know, capturing an Articulate recording. So I could have two instances of Storyline open and capture one with the other. So teaching them how to use Storyline, similar to what I can do in Camtasia. So I think I've gotten to most of the questions. If there's any more, I'll give you just a couple more minutes. But again, just a reminder that, you know, there are lots of great tools out there that can really help you in your development. Make sure that you look at them. Make sure that you go out and look at our website. If you haven't already, you can sign up for a free account and go out and look at the thousands of assets that we have out there, both cutout people, animated, as well as photorealistic. You saw that I pulled in one that was a Storyline character that has 10 different states already set up. You can also pull in ones and create your own states. We have stock images. We have even templates and layouts and things like that that you can grab to begin with. So I actually don't know, Heather, if Replay will do the show guide try. I haven't played with Replay a lot. That's one that I will answer for the webinar recap on Monday. So I apologize that I haven't delved into Replay as much, but I will get you an answer to that. So again, you know, make sure you go out and give us a call if you don't already have a free account. There's a lot out there for you, a lot of benefits, a lot of good templates that you can look at to really get your e-learning juices flowing if you've run into a creative block. We also have a great storyboard template for free in our free library that you can use to help you as you plan your e-learning design and development. With that being said, if there are no more questions, I'll leave the question box open for a few minutes, but I will finish up by saying thank you for coming, and I appreciate your time.